I don't know why the fuck I'm doing this. I really don't. This is just going to put my blood pressure through the roof.
Life is too short to be drinking shitty beer.
Welcome to another edition of Bands, Bikes and Booze Reviews. I've got some of this stuff and fuck knows why, but it's the Tetley's No. 4 Premium Lager. Look at the state of the can. Look, I don't know who had this, but they've just flung it about and it is better to fuck. Now, I was in the shop the other day, round the corner, and Skunk Central, and there's a little post office there, and I was talking to the fella about the post office scandal. If you've not read about that, it is fucking disgusting. Post office workers in the UK, there was a glitch in the software that they use for their accounting, and it was basically losing or making it look like thousands and thousands of pounds worth of going missing from these post offices. And the post office was blaming the postmasters, and of course they were honest as the day is long, but they were going by the software, even though they knew that there was issues with it. And yeah, it was disgusting. It was absolutely disgusting. Some were imprisoned, falsely imprisoned, for stealing money from the post office. I think a couple may have committed suicide. I could be wrong on that, but people lost their homes. They couldn't pay their mortgages. They were turfed out. It was absolutely fucking disgusting, all because of some shitty fucking software that some developers in Japan, I think it was Fuji, had developed that they knew was full of bugs. And they just let it go anyway, and yeah, the result was catastrophic. But look it up if you want to read it. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, I was in the post office talking to the postmaster about it. But when I'd finished doing what I've got to do, I was posting a few things. I came past the fridge that was there, and I saw some of this shit. Tetley's No. 4 Lager. And I thought, Tetley's doing lager. I have got to try this. I know it's going to be shit. So, buckle up, alright? Now, Tetley's, as you may know, are based in the People's Republic of Yorkshire, or they were, up until, I think it was 2011, and they shut down. I think it was quite snaky what they did. When they shut down, they announced the closure the day after, or maybe even on the day of Barack Obama's inauguration. So obviously the news would be full of that, rather than Tetley shutting down. So they did that, I think, to deflect a lot of criticism. But a lot of people lost their jobs, and as much as I didn't like the beer from Tetley's, they have got some heritage. They've been going since 1822. They were based up in Yorkshire, and they've been brewing consistently ever since. But what I really like about the history of breweries is the little footnotes and the caveats that you get in here. So I'm not going to concentrate on too much on the history of it, but I do want to concentrate on a certain element of the history of it. Now, as you know, I love my military history. I've written books about World War One, and this fits in perfectly because just before the start of, not just before the start of World War One, the Leeds Rifles were a territorial regiment, and just before the start of World War One, during the start of World War One, a lot of the workers from Tetley's volunteered for the Leeds Rifles, and they used to have what was known as PALS battalions, and these PALS battalions would be recruited from, say, certain factories or certain workplaces where they had a sizable workforce, and en masse they would all volunteer and they would all be put in the same regiment. So if you're anyway interested in that sort of history, just look up PALS battalions and you'll see that they used to have the West Ham PALS, who were all based around Essex, so they were locally recruited, very tight knit, and they would all go to war together. And it's just tragic when you read about them. And if you read about the Leeds Rifles, where the volunteers from the Tetley's Brewery went, they lost I think over 50 men, and they lost 20 shire horses. They gave horses for the war effort as well. And of course, you had the shire horses were used as draft horses to deliver the beer, but they they gave them to the army, the British Army, to use over in France and Flanders. And of course, they would be pulling gun limbers and things like that, and heavy equipment, because there was no very rudimentary mechanisation back then. And they'd be using horses, so they needed all the horses they could get. And if you look at the history of what they did after the First World War, it is absolutely heartbreaking, because a lot of them horses, there was a massive surplus of horses after World War One, because of cavalry were not used in the role that they were traditionally used. All the draft horses that were based over in France, they had to get rid of them. Some went to farmers, but the majority they actually slaughtered. So these horses had served all through World War One, and at the end of it, they just killed them all. It was absolutely disgusting. And I think the reason they did it is because the logistics involved getting them back to the UK would have just cost too much. And I don't know whether they use them for food, or I know the French like to eat horse meat and stuff like that. We think it's barbaric over here, but in France that's normal. But yeah, they just slaughtered them all, and I think that's a great portrayal. If you're not an animal lover, you're probably not going to think that way. But yeah, I do like my animals, and I think it's pretty fucking disgusting, really. But let's get back to the beer. So Tetley's, yeah, great, really good pedigree of history. It's just a shame about the beer. As I say, they closed down in 2011, and they've been taken over by that fucking great Satan that's Calrsberg. Now, you can argue that, yeah, Calrsberg are keeping the name alive, which is okay, but the beer they're producing is just fucking terrible. And to be honest, Tetley's beer was never that great, in my opinion. I remember years and years ago, this must be 2008, 2009, in my local, they introduced Tetley's Cream Flow, and I'd never seen it before. And they had the John Smith Smooth Flow in there as well. And I tried some of that Tetley's Cream Flow, and of course it contains nitro. And I don't know what it is, but nitro just doesn't agree with me, and it gave me an instant headache, and I took an instant dislike to it. So that was my foray into Tetley beer. Q going forward a couple of years, West Ham at half time. I mean, we were shit back then. I mean, I'm not going to make any bones about it. We had some fucking terrible footballers, and we had some terrible managers as well. Alan Kirbishley, Alan Pardew, all them years and stuff like that. And it got to the point with the fellas I was going with, at half time, we'd go down to the bar, and sometimes we wouldn't even bother going back up to watch the second half. They had big screens, and the bar stayed open, and we just stayed there and drank. And they had Calrsberg or Tetley's. That was your choice. And I remember drinking Tetley's, and it was pretty shit. I mean, I've never been a fan of Tetley's beer. So yes, the pedigree of the brewery is great, and I'm not knocking that at all. And it is part of the heritage of Leeds, and I think they've actually got a Tetley's gallery up there now. I mean, I haven't been to Leeds in years. I mean, last time was with West Ham, believe it or not. But they've got a Tetley's gallery up there now. But they've also got quite a big archive, and there's lots of memorials, certainly to the soldiers that died in World War One and World War Two as well, because the Leeds Rifles fought in World War Two in North Africa and Italy as well. But the heritage is still there. Sadly, Calrsberg are brewing this shit up in the great Satan's house that is in Northampton, and to be honest, I don't hold out much for this. There's one alarm bell that I don't know what's going on, but they say on their website that this should be drunk at ambient temperature, which is unusual for a lager, and it said it's brewed in the ale way. Now, I don't know what that means. When they say the ale way, do they mean they're using top fermented yeast? Is it going to be like a Kölsch? Who knows? Let's find out. They're calling this a premium lager. It's 4.6%, and I don't know what type of lager it is. It's going to be a fucking macro brewed lager, but I don't know whether it's going to be, as they say, I don't know. The terminology they're using is brewed in the ale way. What does that mean? I can only think, because Kölsch is brewed that way. It's brewed with top fermenting yeast, i.e. it's yeast that performs better at a slightly higher temperature in the boil, or not in the boil, it's after the boil that they add the yeast, don't they? But are they brewing it in that style? Who knows? But yeah, I really don't know what to expect. And the fucking state of the can, look, I mean, it's been battered to fuck. I don't know who put that in there, but there was 2 of them on the shelf, and I just thought, fuck it, I'll have one of these. But I'm not holding out much hope for it, because if it's anything like their ale, it's going to be fucking dog shit. Oh, interesting little fact, I've just come to my mind. I was reading up about the history of Tetley's. I think it was in 1911, they challenged Harry Houdini to escape. You know, Harry Houdini was the very famous escape artist, but they challenged him to escape from a beer cask, and he couldn't do it. So yeah, that great publicity for the People's Republic of Yorkshire. Anyway, let's get this open and let's see what's going on. Just before we do, I'm just going to read out what it says. It's got some bump on the side of the can. It says, our totally new sort of lager. It's the sort of lager that's proper decent. Well, obviously that's a northern thing, is proper decent. Today's, fucking hell. Tetley's number 4 has been brewed the ale way for the perfect combination of taste and refreshment using our 200 years of brewing experience. Well, that's bollocks, because you haven't brewed beer since 2011. The experience that you've got comes from Calrsberg, which is going to be fucking bean counting. So don't let this shit fool you, boys and girls, because there's some fucking nonsense they put on the side of beer cans, and that's perfect evidence of that. See, look, lager brewed and canned in the UK, Joshua Tetley and Son, Northampton. Fuck off. Joshua and Tetley and Son don't exist anymore. It's Calrsberg that's in Northampton. Fucking put it on there, you lying bastards. A load of fucking nonsense. Joshua Tetley and Son, premium lager. Fucking hell, I bet he'd be turning his grave if he could see a famous Yorkshire brewery doing lager. There you go. Anyway, let's get this show on the road. Right, get into ye olde glass. I'm using a London Pride glass, pint glass, because it is an English lager. And as I always say, lager is the Achilles heel of English brewing, because we just can't do it. I have to say, and it pains me to say it, there are a couple of good brewers who do reasonably good lager. Sam Smith's and the Yorkshire Beer, is it the Great Yorkshire Beer Brewery, sorry. They do that Yorkshire lager. That's quite nice, I do like that. Very unique. This, typical Calrsberg, smells of nothing. How do they, I don't know. Calrsberg Marston's, a marriage made in heaven. Fuckers brewing beer that smells of nothing. How can you do that? Did you know, little facts here for you. Tetley's is the second most popular ale brand in the world. Who's number 1? Fucking John Smith's. How the fuck? This is what I mean. This is why I do these reviews. Tetley's is not good beer, in my opinion. And I know beer's all about opinion. And John Smith's definitely isn't. Yet they're the 2 most popular ale brands in the world. How the fuck has that happened? It's criminal when you see that some of the good beers that are out there, even some of the bigger breweries, I mean, Fuller's, I know some people are saying that the recipe's changed, but I had a pint of London Pride the other day. I went to a funeral. We ended up in a pub, a pint of London Pride, and it was absolutely sublime. Really well kept, really well stored, lovely. So, I don't know whether all this myths about the recipe changing. I don't believe that. I'm not sure. Certainly not on the strength of that pint I had, because that was absolutely a couple of pints that I had. It was very nice indeed. Unlike this, which doesn't smell of anything. Is it me? I've just reviewed the Viru White IPA, and I don't know whether it's my nostrils or what, and I'm using a different glass, but I'm getting a slightly peppery aroma, almost Belgian-like from this. But it's so faint, it's making me think that this is possibly something that's lingering in my nostrils. But the proof, as I always say, is in the tasting. So let's get it down the hatch. Wish me luck. And it isn't. That tastes a little bit different, actually. There is it's like a pepperiness to this. And it's a little bit different. What the hell have you done, Calrsberg? Because this doesn't taste that bad. It doesn't smell nasty. And the flavour is not repugnant. It's not big, but there's a little bit of character to this. It's very subtle, but I have to say, I'm a little bit surprised because it isn't that bad. There is a little bit of a uniqueness to it, and they do make mention of what is it? A double strain yeast or something. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But this is a little bit different, and it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. That's really weird. And it's bugging me now, because I should be hating this. I should be ranting and raving saying, oh, you fuckers, you don't know what you're doing, blah, blah, blah. Northampton, there's nothing good that comes out of Northampton. But there's something to this. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not bowled me over, it's not amazing. But the fact that it doesn't taste like a bag lady's period is unnerving me slightly. It doesn't appear to have any glucose syrup in it. There was a very, very subtle dryness to it. No sweetness at all. It's almost like they've tried to do something different. And it's not... There's a spiciness to it. That makes it just a little bit different from your average macro brewed lager. Now, when I talk about macro brewed lager being shit, normally you get horrible aromas coming from it, really nasty aromas like sulphurous, metallic, and God knows what else. And it just isn't nice. Cobra being the perfect example, that smelt disgusting. But this doesn't. It doesn't smell of anything. Well, actually, no, I'm lying now. And it's really confusing because there's a very, very slight... it's almost like a white pepper, Belgian-esque style flavour. And it's not my imagination playing tricks on me, because I've just tried the Brewery white IPA, which was quite sweet. It was a mix between a Belgian Wit beer and a American New England IPA. But there's elements of that in this, and I know for a fact it's not, because I've just had some crisps, and it's not that's influencing my taste. But this isn't as bad as I thought it'd be. It's really subtle. And I wonder if they've used ale yeast in this, and they've top fermented it, but cold stored it. I don't think a macro brewer would do that. But it doesn't taste like a golden ale. So what have they done? It's not my imagination either. Wow. Wow. I thought I was going to be launching into rant mode here, and my blood pressure was going to be... I'd be like stressed Eric, do you remember him, with a fucking vein pumping out of his head? But I'm not. This isn't the worst lager in the world. It really isn't, and that's fucking surprised me. Now this is reasonably cold. It's come out of the fridge, and I'm getting a lot of the flavours because this room's quite warm at the moment. The central heating's on, and it's starting to warm up a little bit. But it ain't that bad, I have to say, and I'm being slightly unnerved here. Oh, hang on. I just looked at the bottom of this. Fucking sell-by date. This is actually 2 days out of date. Fuck. That's 2 days out of date. It's now the 4th of March, and the sell-by date, I don't know if you can see this or not. It's very... Hang on. I'm not going to do a mic from the young ones on here. I don't think you're going to see it, but I can see that this goes out of date on the... Can you see that? It's very, very faint, but I can see that on there. 2nd of the 3rd, 2022. So it's 2 days out of date, and it actually tastes a little different. Doesn't smell that bad. It doesn't taste that bad. What the fuck is going on with the world? Fuck my old boots. Well, you lives and learns, don't you? So what is the verdict on Tetley's number 4 premium lager? Honestly, if you'd have said to me that I would try this, I mean, I bought this not half thinking, yeah, I'll review this, it might be good for a laugh, because I can have a rant, and some people like watching me rant for some reason, I don't know why. Ask me missus, she don't like watching me rant at all. But this isn't the worst lager in the world. Now don't get me wrong, it's not the best, but when you consider that I was expecting this to be a 1 out of 10, 2 mouthfuls, pour down the sink, rant about macro beer, oh, people are just fucking being fed any old shit and they'll accept it. But this isn't bad, actually, considering. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not the best lager in the world, and it's not going to make me change my opinion that the English or the British, if you want, can't brew lager. Obviously, a couple of exceptions, but on the whole, they can't. And this isn't evidence to prove that they can. What this is evidence to show is that not everything that comes out of Northampton, well, everything that comes out of Northampton, bar this, is virtually undrinkable. Because it's got a unique aroma. And it reminds me of that last lot, the Viru stuff. And that was in a different glass, so it's not that that's influencing it. But it's almost like some type of spicy, yeasty ester that's coming from this. I don't know what the fuck they've done with it or what they've put in it, but it gives it just a little tiny bit of character. Not much. It's flat as a witch's tit as well. I don't know if you can see that or not, but there's not much. But it doesn't taste like a bad golden ale. You know, my rants about golden ale, that's another thing. But it isn't. It's definitely got a lager thing going on. And it isn't the worst in the world. Well, fucking hell. Now, don't get me wrong, as I say, it's not great. I wouldn't be fucking extolling the virtues of Tetley's number 4. But, and to be honest, I don't think I'd buy it again. But I'm not repulsed and put off by this. So, well, yeah. That has shocked me. So what mark am I going to give it? Well, as I say, it's not a pour down the sink job. So it's going to get more than a 2 out of 10. Would I buy it again? No. So it's not going to get more than a 6 out of 10. Would I recommend it to anyone? I would put it in front of a few macro brewed lagers. Carling, definitely. Heineken, definitely. Calrsberg, I haven't tried the new flavour yet, the new recipe that they've done, so possibly, but it's probably better than them. So I think 5 out of 10 is a fair mark. And to be honest, I'm very unnerved that I'm not chucking this down the sink. I mean, look at the state of the can. I know I keep going on about that, but I don't know what the fuck they've done to it. They probably booted it around the shop or some fucking... I mean, there's some nasty fuckers that live on this estate. It's probably thrown it around the shop at someone. It wouldn't surprise me. But that isn't the worst lager in the world. I think 5 out of 10 is a fair mark. I'm not going to give it any more than that. If you do like your lagers, then this is not great. It's not going to bowl you over. Certainly doesn't compare to anything from Germany. But it isn't the worst thing I've tasted that's come out of Northampton. And I've tasted some shit that's come out of that fucking place. Wow. Calrsberg. What the fuck? I think whoever got the recipe for that may have been on some sort of drugs, because they've actually produced a beer that's remotely drinkable. So yeah, 5 out of 10. Not going to recommend it, but if you see it, try it, let me know what you think. Weird. I'm a bit weirded out here, and if it looks like I'm a bit shocked, I am, because I had the rant prepared and everything. I'm gutted. I might have to buy some Calrsberg now and get that rant out of my system. But there you go, Tetley's number 4. Not the worst in the world. And remember, this ain't working class champagne, but it ain't bad.